What's up, YouTube? I'm another guy, and today we're gonna be reacting to the greatest escape in history. I don't even know what to be expecting. Like, how many great escapes do we have through history? Like, I know we have I think was it Pablo Escobar that escaped an American prison, and there was this, or maybe it was another drug dealer. I'm not sure, but hey, this is why we're learning history today. The greatest escape in history. See what's about.
This is Stalag Luft 3.
Stalag
Constructed over the course of 2 years between 1942 and 19...
Bro, that sounds like some military, you know, when you're just being sent away to be mad. Sounds like a mental institution for prisoners. Like, you're just sent there in a box by yourself just to be alone, to go crazy. Like, the name alone is like
1944
daunting.
in the dense forests of Sagan, 145 kilometers southeast of Berlin.
Oh, so
it became
it was in
one
Germany.
of the largest prisoner of war camps of its kind.
Prisoner of war camps.
Designed specifically for the officers of Allied air crews shot down over Axis-occupied territories, this sprawling high-security complex, which comprised 5 separate compounds, would house between 10 to 12,000 prisoners at its peak.
How do you have so many prisoners in a prison? 10 to 12,000 people? Like, think. Do you know how many people is 10 to 12,000 people? Let me give you an example. Like, a basketball arena holds probably 16 to 20,000 people. So we're talking a little bit over that. And a prison is filled with that. Yo, Sympathitis be running wild. I'm telling you, over half of that is because of sympathitis. I don't care if it's in the 1900s. I don't care if it's year 1. Sympathitis start with Adam, and it's gonna end with the last man that ever lived. Don't tell me that, oh, nerdy, it's because back then, 1940 thing, you know, sympathitis wasn't running rampant. No.
But what it's really famous for is not what you see above ground, but what you're not seeing below it. The secret subterranean tunnel that facilitated the greatest escape in history.
Really?
But before we get into the story behind it, I'd like to thank this video's sponsor, Call of War. Call of War is a free online PvP strategy game set in World War II that allows you to lead a country to triumph or ruin depending on your skill or lack thereof. Itself to a more calculated and strategic experience than encirclements and posting them mobile today, and use my... As far as prison camps are concerned, Stalag Luft 3 is a relatively comfortable place to be holed up. Due to their status as officers, prisoners were afforded significant privileges over the average conscript. The northern compound, the site of the escape, boasted a well-stocked library, a swimming pool, a sports field, and a makeshift theatre which occasionally hosted movies and live music.
Bro, these prisoners were living lifestyle in the 1940s. A sports field, a library, a pool, a theatre. Prisoners nowadays have that? But they were living life.
The fact that the camp was operated by
they have movies in the 1940s is crazy to me. Wow.
Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, meant that there was also a degree of respect and camaraderie between captors and captives. Of course, Such positives did little to dissuade prisoners from wanting to escape. They could never know how long they'd remain captive, how long the war would drag on, or what the outcome would be. To sit idly by and accept their imprisonment would be like consigning themselves to a limbo of uncertainty where they had no autonomy and no purpose. So they would make escaping their purpose. Not only did it give them something to occupy themselves and allow them to defy their captors, but it aligned with their sense of duty to the Allied war effort. Any escape attempt that forced the Germans to allocate more manpower and equipment to prevent a prison break or conduct a manhunt drew vital resources away from the Axis front lines and damaged their war machine. There was just one problem. The prison was said to be escape-proof. The compound was surrounded by a set of fences spaced 1.5 meters apart, their tops bristling with barbed wire. Between them lay even more. Even getting to the fences was difficult. If someone stepped over a nearby warning wire while approaching them, they'd be shot and
we're gonna break you.
If by some miracle you were able to climb over or cut through them without disemboweling yourself, you'd have to cross another 30 or so meters of no man's land before you reached the sanctuary of the tree line.
It's too hard!
This was all the while hoping that the guards stationed in the camp's towers went spontaneously blind and became hard of hearing.
I really want to hear how they got up.
There was nothing to shield you from the machine gun fire. Okay, so brute forcing an escape over the fence wouldn't work. Fine, just dig a tunnel. The Germans supposedly had that covered too. Every hut was built a few inches off the ground to make it harder for inmates to hide their digging beneath the buildings.
Wow.
In addition, the compound
had been built on
sandy, silt-like soil that was extremely difficult to tunnel through without causing a collapse. Finally, sensitive microphones were placed underground all around the perimeter of the camp to detect.
Sensitive microphones in the 1940s? Bro, are we talking about 2000, the early 90s, 1980s, or are we talking about 1940s? Sensitive microphones? Bro, what else did they have? Are those stories of Egyptians having laptops for real? Back
the sound of
in
tunneling.
The Pharaoh days?
So how did they do it? How did the prisoners of Stalag Luft 3 build not just any tunnel, but a tunnel that could bypass all of these security precautions? For this massive undertaking, the prisoners of the North Compound established one of the most sophisticated and organized escape industrial complexes ever conceived. Over the course of more than a year between April of 1943 and March of 1944, a group of around 600 American, British, and other European prisoners would furnish materials for and construct 3 separate tunnels beneath the compound.
Tom, Dick, and Harry. So this is where it all originated from. History lesson, guys.
Hoping that if the Germans found 1 or 2, they would not think to look for a third. To avoid detection in the first place, these tunnels would be disguised with inconspicuous pieces of furniture. The main tunnel we'll be focusing on, nicknamed Harry, was hidden under a metal cooking stove that had been placed over a wooden trapdoor. Each tunnel would be built roughly 7.6 meters underground as to avoid microphones.
Bro, imagine the work that you have to be doing to even dig. Like, bro, imagine, like, what? I know they didn't have shovels. What were they digging with? Like, what? Did they have shovels? What were they digging with? And bro, man's was out there sweating, trying to solid stone or rock or whatever the hell they were trying to dig through.
Picking up the sound of digging. To prevent any tunnel collapses at this depth, they would need to be reinforced with support beams. which of course was a bit of a problem.
They thought of all of that? Join millions of players across the globe in massive battles on tanks, aircraft, and
these guys are smart as hell.
It was nearly impossible to smuggle materials into the camp, especially not on the scale required for tunnel construction. The solution to this was to get the Germans to unwittingly provide prisoners with the very materials needed for their escape. Items such as bedboards, chairs, tables, and benches would mysteriously disappear.
Hey, once there's a will, there's a ways. Prisoners find anything to help them useful in any plan or any goal they have. See, that's what I'm telling you guys. Don't give up on your dreams, because look, if prisoners can break apart beds, benches, whatever the hell they were using to escape out of prison in the 1940s. Come on, bro.
Reported as defective.
You don't need
the
any
Germans
more
were
motivation
encouraged
from me.
by neutral third-party inspectors, such as the Red Cross and the Swiss, to provide a minimum standard of living for inmates. So they would often replace these items when they went missing, providing a steady stream of construction goods. Naturally, the heavy rate of turnover for certain items was a point of confusion for the Stalag-Luft administration. The camp's commander, Colonel Friedrich von Lindeiner, noted that, quote, "The material required by the camp amounts to 5 times the amount which would be used for German troops using the same accommodation." Of course, the occupants of Wehrmacht facilities weren't fashioning their bedboards into support columns and stealing screws from light fittings to affix table legs.
Bro, you see what I'm talking about?
That's right.
These guys are smart as hell.
To speed up the digging process, the inmates would construct a rail and cart system that stretched along the entirety of the tunnel, shuttling tools, materials, and people towards one end and sand back to the other. That was another problem, though: the sand. Digging a tunnel required displacing a lot of it, and it couldn't simply be piled up outside of one of the huts, because that would immediately arouse suspicion. To make it worse, the sand below ground was yellow, and the sand above was grey. To address this, more than 100 men known as penguins would store sand in bags hidden under their coats, and covertly release it in the camp's courtyard, kicking it as they did so to blend it with the grey topsoil.
Bro, how long
in the process,
did they take to
looked a bit
achieve this?
Like penguins.
To
further ensure the project
there's a lot of
discovered,
planning,
the inmates employed a constantly rotating roster of watchmen that would alert the tunnelers to approaching guards, allowing them to cover up tunnels before any inspection. This was just as well, since the camp
10
employed
to
specialist
12,000 people make up their mind to do something. Why can't they?
Whose sole
Even
purpose
if it was
to sniff out
actually
in the
like
tunnels
600.
and
That's
spy
still a great number.
Prisoners. They were only ever one misstep away from discovery and utter failure.
Yeah.
To punctuate that point, one of the 3 tunnels being
and it was
worked
in
on by the
1942.
name of Tom was discovered by ferrets amidst...
What? They found out? Oh God, people died. Because, especially in the wartime, you don't give a fuck about lives.
heightened vigilance
Germans?
in September of 1943. Unfortunately, following this discovery, the American prisoners in the northern compound were relocated, as it was deemed that the Brits and the Yanks were getting along far too well with each other. After this incident, a decision was made to focus all efforts onto Tunnel Harry so that it might be ready for an escape attempt when the weather improved in the new year. In the meantime, a detachment of the involved inmates busied themselves with the creation of escape kits containing everything a prisoner would need once outside the compound. This included civilian clothes, compasses, forged identity papers, and maps. The materials required for the creation of these items...
Bro, do I even need to ask where they got these? Aren't these men in prison? Where on earth do they source civilian clothes? Maps? Well, they have a library, so obviously. But fake IDs, where? Who are they contacting on the outside? Who's the inside man? Yo, this is crazy, bro.
Items were often procured by bartering with some of the more sympathetic camp
Where they get money
personnel
from?
who might be convinced
They're in
to part
prison.
ways with some pens, papers, magnets, cloth and cash in
So
exchange
this prison's
for some
supposed to be
chocolate
secure,
and
but you
coffee.
have men in there
After
bartering.
months of careful
Men getting
preparation, the
access.
tunnel, which had grown to a length of 111
Some
meters,
fake
was deemed
IDs.
the prisoners of Stalag Luft 3's
That's
northern
crazy.
compound would carry out their escape on the night of the 24th of March, 1944. Around 200 prisoners were set to make the attempt, but only those determined to have the best chance of remaining undetected would go first. 30 men, fluent in German, would be given what little money had been accumulated, as well as a head start to try and make it to the nearby Sagan train station before the last train left for the night. Most of the remaining prisoners would have to travel by foot.
Bro.
Each individual...
Not me. By foot? I'm saying you have to make your way to where?
had separate...
Switzerland? Is it Switzerland right here? Greater Germany? Inner Germany? And we're passing that? Look at the lines. Oh, hell nah, bro. Look at this. Bro, these men were something else. I mean, they have already proven to me that they are smart beyond years. Like, bro, yo. This is determination at its finest. That's all I gotta say.
travel plans, but
For
most
me to
hoped
walk
to
by
reach
foot,
Allied territory
how many
by
miles
neutral
is this?
countries.
Bro, see, we're walking from Germany to make it to Spain, Turkey, Sweden. Yo, that is absolutely mind-blowing. And we're talking about the 1940s. Walking. Bro, I don't even know what to compare it to.
The mood in the compound was tense. The movement of each guard was being tracked and relayed to the escape committee, and each man made his preparations for the long road ahead.
Bro, that is not a long road. That is not a long road. That is an ocean. That's like swimming across the Pacific Ocean, bro. That is not a long road. That's swimming from the east of the Pacific Ocean to the west, all the way back. So you literally leave like anywhere, Mexico, whatever, and you end up on Australia. That's what I'd compare that to. That is absolutely insane. But I have to take my hats off for the determination and the perseverance and the brains to even think of something like
Roughly
this.
8:45
And the
that
balls to
evening,
execute
a
it.
number of prisoners took up positions at various points inside the tunnel. Lying in cramped conditions,
And it's some
they
crazy
would pull
shit right here.
escapees up along the rails. At around 9:30, one of the men began removing the boards obscuring the entrance to the escape shaft at the end of the tunnel. But they were waterlogged and jammed. It took until 10:15 to finally wrench them loose. This was a significant delay. Night fell around 9 p.m. and the sun came up at 5:30 in the morning. They had just wasted 45 minutes of darkness just trying to get the exit open. To make matters worse, the escape hatch, which had been planned to come out within the tree line, was actually a few meters into no man's land. Despite this setback, the inmates resolved to continue with their escape anyway.
I mean, at that
They just
point,
had
you
to
just
be
gotta
very
keep
careful
going.
to avoid the German sentries that regularly patrolled the perimeter of the compound. With this in mind, they placed a watchman at the edge of the tree line, hidden in a spying nest set up by the Germans to surveil the camp from a distance. This person would periodically tug a rope that led into the exit hatch to signal an all clear.
Bro,
From
But I tell you, these men were smart. They were on their P's and Q's in every single, like, part of this mission. Like, everything. Yo, bro, this was
10:30 onwards, a steady stream of men made their way through
the strategy was like
slipping out into the darkness of the night
single thing
between the gaps in the patrols. Over the course of the next 6 hours, 76 men escaped Stalag-Luft 3. But at 4:55 a.m., just over half an hour before dawn's first light, disaster struck. One of the escapees misinterpreted a rope tug to mean that he was clear to emerge from the tunnel. When he did, he came up right in front of one of the patrolling sentries, who after an initial shock
Bro, just imagine this guy creeping up like this. You seeing the guard, and the guard seen him. Like, bro, he know it was over then. The guard would probably be like, yo, what is this? Have the guard, yo!
collected himself, fired a warning shot, blew his whistle, and detained the man at gunpoint. The escape had been busted.
Oh, so that was a nice guardsman then. He didn't kill nobody. He was feeling good that day. But still, the plan is broken. Hey, if I'm a part of that 76, I'm gone. They are not seeing me. They won't hear a word from me. They won't see my face again. Hell, my face has changed. My skin tone has changed. It's not me again. I'm gone. You will not ever see. Even if we plan this escape together, when you see me again, if you see me again, you won't even know it was me.
Unfortunately, most of the men that had successfully escaped Stalag-Luft 3 that fateful evening would end up being captured, some even before they'd left the town of Sagan.
How? Well, I mean, you have to walk. It's not like you had a car or anything. These men probably had whatever tanks or shit trying to hunt you down, so...
A nationwide search involving 60 to 70,000 Wehrmacht troops and Gestapo personnel was launched, making it almost impossible to travel through Germany undetected.
Trust me, when I change my face, my skin tone, everything, bro, it doesn't even matter if they have 1 billion people searching. They will not find me. Bro, trust and believe.
The tunnel's discovery had doomed them. Ultimately, only 3 of the 76 men would evade capture.
And I'm telling you, I would be a part of that 3. I would be. They are not finding me.
2 Norwegians, who managed to sneak their way to neutral Sweden via Stettin, and 1 Dutchman, who linked up with resistance forces in the Netherlands before travelling discreetly to the Spanish border and then Gibraltar. The vast majority.
That nigga made it all the way to the Gibraltar. I'm telling you. And this probably not that might even be a nigga. That's the craziest part about it. This is a why. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not making assumptions, but it's crazy. All the way from Gibraltar, Germany, to Gibraltar. Yep.
Majority of the other
He's just stuck with that guy.
He
knows what
lucky.
the hell he's doing.
Over the course of the next few months, they would virtually vanish off the face of the earth, only to turn up back in the town of Sagan in burial urns, as nothing more than ash. Until the end of the war, no one knew for sure what had happened to them. A Royal Air Force investigation conducted following Germany's surrender found that 50 of the 73 recaptured prisoners had been shot in roadside summary executions. That is to say, illegally. Interviews conducted with the Gestapo personnel present for these executions show that the escapees were informed that they were to be returned to Stalag Luft 3. In transit, they would be invited to leave the car to, quote, relieve themselves at the side of the road. Once the handcuffed prisoners began to do so, his captors would shoot him in the back of the head,
execution style,
at which point he would fall into the ditch in front of him. A truly undignified death. The scenery and the weaponry changed, but the methods rarely did. Most would be executed in this fashion. It helped the Gestapo construct the myth that the prisoners had been killed while trying to escape. But ultimately, this did little to conceal their true actions.
Bro, this was 1940.
A Swiss inspector at Stalag Luft 3 was immediately suspicious of the explanation and reported his findings to the British government. Many of the Gestapo men responsible for the extrajudicial killings of these POWs would be judged guilty of war crimes and sentenced to harsh prison sentences or death at the Nuremberg trials. While the flight from Stalag Luft 3 may not have been the largest by numbers prison escape during World War II, it was certainly the most impressive given...
Well, these are the great escapes. It's up there.
The
76 not bad, sure.
The complexity of the planning
but
and
still,
the resulting...
359. That prison must suck.
Fallout. The prisoners of that camp had set out to escape, die trying, or inconvenience the Germans to such a degree that it would affect the war effort. It's safe to say they succeeded. For a month, they occupied tens of thousands of German troops and led them on a wild goose chase, diverting resources that would have been more effectively used in the fight against the Allies. The Stalag Luft 3 escape did not end well. It ended in a war crime born of the want to dissuade others from following in its footsteps. Escape is no longer a sport, echoed like a shrill tempest through every camp in Europe. Escape at your own peril was the Nazi message. The threat didn't work. It never would have. Almost as soon as the remaining Stalag Luft 3 prisoners were informed of the deaths of their comrades, they began yet another tunnel in a bid to escape.
To threaten someone,
the desire for freedom overrode even the strongest instincts of self-preservation.
Absolutely wild to me. These men didn't care about that. But interesting stuff.
Thanks again to Call of War for sponsoring this video.
That was the video. The greatest escape in history. Honestly, well executed plan. You know, those stuff always are gonna be hard, especially how security level was high in that prison. But hey, 76 escaped. 3 live to talk about it. Only 3. Might be dead now because it was the 1940s, but hey, still got to tell the kids, hey, I escaped Stalag Luft 3. That's what the prison is named? Yeah, whatever. I'm not from Germany. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment down below. See y'all next time. Peace.